Typically, we think about boundaries as something that we have to enforce upon another person. But boundaries, just like anything else, I believe, begins within. When I feel like someone is crossing my boundaries, whether it's with my time or my personal space or in friendships or romantic relationships, I first go inward and consider what areas in my life have I not clearly defined and therefore have no concrete boundaries for myself. I believe people only treat you how you treat yourself. So in whatever areas that I feel my boundaries have been crossed in, I look at my requirements and non-negotiables in that area and determine where can I clearly define those standards so other people aren't defining them for me. Sometimes we label others as aggressive or pushy or bullies or even abusive when we haven't clearly defined those areas in our lives and we're allowing other people to define them for us. We don't consciously create our lives, so someone comes in and creates our life for us and puts us where they see fit. You become the supporting role in your own movie. Hell no. Define your life, create your own boundaries, and ensure that everything that's present in your life is exactly what you created and what you want it to be. In this video, I'm going to give you some tips and guidelines that I use to redefine my personal boundaries and standards to ensure I'm getting exactly what I want out of my life. One of the things that I do, especially in my coaching practice, is I always ask myself, WWMHSD. What would my higher self do? A lot of times we get caught up in our current circumstances and we don't think about the next level version of ourselves. I'm always thinking about Irene 2.0 and placing myself in her shoes, and I mean that in every single area. Not just career, but money, business, friendships, relationships, personal life. I mean, every single area. It's so important to think about your next level self so you can keep raising that standard and raising the base level of what is acceptable and what's sufficient for you. Maybe when you were in high school, chilling at the park was a nice hangout for you, but now that you're an adult and you're a little older, you expect a nice brunch or you want to go to a decent restaurant. It's important to be constantly redefining what your base level of acceptability is and not deviating from that. A lot of the times it isn't other people crossing your boundaries. It's you not upholding the standards and boundaries that you've set for yourself and tapping into the higher version of yourself that knows and believes that you deserve it. So one example I can give you is with my business. So I'm a licensed esthetician by trade and I offer beauty services. So what was acceptable to me right out of school is different than what's acceptable to me now 1 year later, and I've reinvested into my business, into my skills. I have more experience, more application, more knowledge, more training. It's just what was acceptable to me then is not acceptable to me now. So I've raised that baseline for myself. So when I went to raise my prices, it felt a little bit scary for me, and I felt like I was afraid to lose clients or just not get the same amount of loyalty as I had before. So maybe for you, that's the same problem that you're having. You're feeling like if I raise my standards or I establish my own boundaries, then I might lose my partner or my friends or business. But with time comes growth and elevation, and sometimes you just have to raise your prices and your standards unapologetically. Another example within my business I can give you, this is a really good one for boundaries and standards and things. So when, like I said, I was just starting my business, my prices were really low, obviously, because I was right out of school, and I was offering services like brow threading, and I was doing waxing at one point and facials. So I didn't want to be, I guess, one of those people. I know you guys see those like really long like rules and deposits and standards and all those booking rules when you're trying to book someone for like a service like hair or nails or skincare or something like that. So I didn't want to be one of those people who had like rules and boundaries and standards. So I kept getting these certain type of clients who would be like, oh, well, can I bring my cousin, or can I bring my dog, or can I bring my kids? And I would get myself into this predicament where I was, in addition to trying to perfect my craft and trying to offer good customer service, I was having to deal with people's children and people's animals and people's family members. And I got myself into this really stressful predicament where like I was being late because I was having to cater to not only my client and getting them water and making sure they're settled and making sure I'm giving them a really good service. I had to also cater to their family members and their pets because I didn't have any clearly defined standards or boundaries at that point. I would attract certain clients and they would book and they wouldn't even show up. So I had to add in deposits and rules and terms for booking so I wouldn't lose out on money because I put out all these products and disposable items. I was putting all these things out and it was going down the drain because I had to throw them all out because my clients wouldn't show up, or I would be off with my times and with my quality of service because I would have to be catering to them, the client, and their guests that they brought. So that's a good story to indicate when you don't have clearly defined standards or boundaries in a certain area, other people will define them for you. So in order to start establishing your own standards or your own boundaries in areas, I suggest having a do not accept list. And this is a list of things that you personally will not accept. So sit down with a journal, a physical journal, a pen and paper, whatever you have on hand, and define the areas of your life that you need to establish boundaries or have higher standards in. So you can just say, I don't accept X, Y, and Z. So it can be, I don't accept people calling me past 10 p.m. And this becomes a sort of do not do list for yourself, which is why personal accountability is so important, because it becomes something that you are establishing for yourself personally and not something that you're hot potatoing off onto someone else. So if you say you don't want someone to call you past 10 p.m., that's on you and your own boundaries, that if someone calls you past 10 p.m., you don't answer, or you may leave your phone in the next room or turn your phone on airplane mode between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. or something like that. So that becomes something that you add to your own boundaries, and that's what you hold yourself to. Another example is, I don't accept hangouts as dates. So if you aren't accepting hangouts as dates, that becomes a do not do list for you. You don't accept anything that is semblance of a hangout or a walk or something casual and count it as a date. So that becomes something that you have to adopt as your own standard and boundary. And in my practice, I take this a step further and I try to put you in your creative consciousness. So I want all of us to be conscious creators of our reality, right? And a lot of times we are very much so in our problem consciousness. So we're always focused on the problem. An example is the pink elephant. If I tell you don't think of a pink elephant, what's the first thing that you're going to think of? You're going to think of a pink elephant. But if I tell you do think of a blue panda, you're going to think of a blue panda. And it's also going to be in the thing that you want to create for yourself and not something that you're saying, do not create this thing. So when you're in a problem consciousness, you're focused on the problem and all the things that are going wrong or going bad. But when you're in the creative consciousness, you are creating things that are in alignment with what your higher self desires. So instead of saying, I don't want friends who leave me out and talk behind my back, you can say, I do want friends who treat me amazingly and make me feel seen and loved and understood, and we have just a soulmate resonance. In my practice, I go really, really deeply into being in your creative consciousness and just being a conscious creator of your reality. And if you want more information about that, then you can email my team below and we'll get you more information on how you can work with me one-on-one. So it's after all this asking, what will my higher self do? Doing your journaling on what areas you need more clearly defined boundaries and possibly higher standards in, creating your do not accept list, and shifting into your creative consciousness that you can even think about talking to anyone else about your boundaries, because most of this is inward and it's things that you do internally that makes that different shift, that raises your standards, it raises your frequency, and you begin to attract better, and the people around you begin to shift in response to your change in energy. So I hope this video helps. Thumbs up if it did, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.